Hi guys, it's Geoff Ballard here. Today I wanted to go through some of the things that I've been doing as a setup on this new bike I've got, which is a 19 WR450. I've also, some of you may have known that I had a accidental, I guess you'd call it, a test ride on a Transmoto board up at WR, and for years I've been riding Huskies and KTMs and haven't really been interested in 450s or even so much Yamahas, but by accident that one came up and I had a ride on it and really liked it, and was pretty impressed, and I managed to keep that bike, the test bike of theirs, for a few weeks and sort of fell in love with it in many ways. I've still got a 19 model KTM 350 that I love as well, so I'm spending more time on the WR at the moment, and I was just going to go through some different things that I've done that I think have helped set it up. And also just a note, I think a general note, that for a lot of people who get a new bike, this sort of setup can be relevant to pretty much anything, and guys easily get lost in a setup or something they're changing for themselves. So just, you know, I've learned over many years of running race teams and things that sticking quite close to standard is a very good base, and it just makes it so much easier if you have down some settings. I've written down the standard settings on this. In many ways the standard suspension is working really well. There's a lot of people get involved in testing that are great riders, so you never really want to lose sight of that. And you know, over the years it's helped me. I've learned a lot from some of the great riders that we had come through our team as well. So I'm really enjoying riding still, and I raced last year and raced the off-road and rode that mostly on the KTM, and I rode a 300 two-stroke, and I rode some beaters last year. I'm always sort of looking for what's out there and riding it, and so yeah, this bike really impressed me, I have to be honest, and I didn't expect it to be. I've ridden the earlier ones and I wasn't particularly impressed. It didn't suit me, the earlier WRs, but the 19 has got a lot of changes, and it's a pretty amazing bike. Anyway, starting at the back, I mean, the gearing was one thing that I liked playing with, and just seemed to be in the wrong gear a little bit too much. So talking to some other guys and everything, I've ended up going from a 50 tooth on the rear down to a 48. And one of the really important things I feel with a bike that's powerful like this 450 is I've got the axle right at the back of the swing arm, and it just makes it makes the suspension a little bit more compliant, it seems, from the longer swing arm, let's say. And it also helps stop it wheeling as much out of corners, which can get you off balance easier. And so that's one thing, but also the rear brake on the standard bikes, I find them too aggressive. So I've gone to a solid rear disc, and I've also gone to an organic pad, and that's helped a lot. So I'm really happy with that. In a general setup, if we come forward from there, I found the standard seat. At first I was a bit confused, and I was sort of, you know, didn't really know what was going on. I thought that the foot pegs had to be lower, and then in the end I realised that, compared it to a few other things, measured around and then talked to a few people, but I've gone to a higher seat even though I'm not tall myself, and that was one of the biggest improvements. On the bike that I got to keep for a few weeks, I added some foam underneath, but I've since bought a GYTR high seat, and it's really a good thing. I've also gone to a slightly lower bar. I just feel that it works well, and it's just better in the corners, I feel, and I ride a lot of tight, you know, technical stuff at times, so it seems to work well there. This bike steers incredibly fast, and it's one reason why I think it feels quite light for a 450, and it's one reason I don't ride 450s is just the inertia of the engine and everything makes them feel heavier. But this bike's a bit different, and it's probably to do with a combination of how they've made this crazy cylinder and all that sort of stuff. That's possibly got some influence in it, but the rest of it is, I would say, is they're having the fuel under the seat. I've gone to a lightweight battery, and I save, I think it's 1.6 kilos up high, which is pretty important. Also, I've gone with the 48 tooth, while I remember now, I've gone to an alloy rear sprocket, mainly for changing the gearing, but also because it takes half a kilo off the unsprung weight, which is spinning, and it's a very bad weight to have. If you're adding weight, under the engine's the best place, and from there the unsprung weight really affects the bike. So yeah, I've changed a couple of things on the handlebars, just in a general setup, and you know, you get to learn where you like levers and different things. So I've switched a few things around where the start switch is on the right. It's got a this bike comes with a map switch to detune it, and it works really well. It does it obviously electronically, and you can change it. You can change mapping on these things, but one of the things that I learnt, and I did on the bike that I got to keep for a few weeks, and it's very funky, and it sounds pretty crazy, but honestly, if you've got one of these bikes, I really want you to try it because it works incredibly well. And the air intake on these bikes, obviously the air filter's up here, and the air intake is on both sides, and we started by testing just with a rag in there, but there's nothing sophisticated. We've used a bit of mousse, and we just shove it into the to one side, so we basically restrict it, and I don't exactly know how it works, and it wasn't me who came up with it. It was a top motocrosser in New Zealand, but it makes the bike very, very easy to ride, very linear power, and there's certainly no issues with this bike having enough power. So in many ways, you're just trying to steer around what is a fantastic engine, but just trying to make it work as well as you can. And obviously if you're riding out in the desert or something, you can go full power, do whatever you want to do. But in more technical terrain and stuff, even the guys who are racing, they're not looking for more power. They're just trying to make it so that it's as usable and smooth as you can get. I also, because I mentioned earlier, it steers incredibly fast. I've set the sag and everything at the normal measurements, and I found that for my weight, the rear spring was a little bit too heavy, so I've gone to a lighter rear spring. And in the fork, even though I've done that, got the rear set well, I've found that because of the steering and everything, I've run the fork quite flush on the front, and for me, that's working really well. You don't need this bike to steer any better than it already steers. If you know, you've obviously got the handlebar position, and standard is there's a back position and a forward on the triple clamp, and it comes standard in the back position with the bar slightly forward, and that's where I've left it, but I'm going to experiment with bringing it even further back. I can't imagine anybody really going any further forward than the standard position, because it just seems to be biased that way. It's a very well balanced bike. But you know, it just steers incredibly well anyway. So, and you can take advantage of that in so many other ways, but you don't need to get any more forward than necessary to get this thing to turn. It's a beauty that way. The muffler, I've experimented a bit. I bought a GYTR insert, and right now I'm not running because it's back to smooth, but it adds a bit more bottom end. We put in a faster change, and it runs an 8mm bolt. I've done that. I'm thinking about taking the fan off because it drives me nuts a bit here and there. You can turn it off manually just by hitting the switch, but it comes on quite a lot, and I'm thinking about taking that off and running Liquid Intelligence, which is a non-water based coolant, and works very well. I've been using it for years and years in all of my bikes, and a lot of the 6-day people have been using it too. So it's a good product. The standard bash plate on these is quite well protected, and it's plastic, which I think is the best material to make plates out of. They're a lot less transmitting of the noise of the engine and everything. But I've got an AXP that I'm going to put on probably soon. I've been riding today. I'm going to ride again this afternoon. But the beauty of the AXP, it's a bit stronger, it's thicker, and it comes back and comes underneath the linkage. So when you're going over logs and things, it transfers over the top of them really well. So yeah, you know, I've just done a few things. The setup is comfortable for me now, and I really like it. I'm quite close on suspension. To be honest, most of the stuff I'm doing is trying to make it smoother. Compared to the KTM, which I've got a 19 model 350, and I'm a little bit quicker on this bike in most of the test tracks that we've got, and it's fun just to have this much power. I have tried other 450s, and I just feel they're a bit heavy, but so right now it's a great bike. Both of them are good. I think for cross country, the KTM 350 could be maybe a better thing, but right now I'm just enjoying the excitement of this bike, and also just how yeah, I can ride it quicker than the other one, so that's pretty good for me. And yeah, I'm just learning it more and more, and having lots of fun. So yeah, I'll keep you posted, but a few more things to do to it, but it's a beauty. This bike so far has been great to ride, and I'm really enjoying it.